It started with one question that froze the entire room. A senator leaned forward, microphone in hand, and asked, "Do you believe America is safer after 1,600 violent offenders were pardoned?" The pause that followed wasn't silence, it was tension thick enough to feel through the screen. You could see the hesitation, the calculation, and the moment someone realized there was no safe way to answer. This wasn't just another committee hearing. It was a collision between two versions of America, one that demands accountability and another that thrives on loyalty. And sitting in the middle of it was a man trying to defend the indefensible without saying the words out loud. The question came from Senator Dick Durbin, who wasn't there for small talk.
Mr. Patel, I have 3 or 4 things, and I'll try to get through them quickly. First is this. When it comes to the issue of violence in politics, I personally believe it has no place in politics. Whether it's violence against Donald Trump at the Butler County Fairgrounds or violence against Nancy Pelosi's husband in her home, period. And those people who, Proud Boys, whatever the heck they call themselves, have no place in this country as far as I'm concerned if they espouse violence in any form. Do you agree?
Yes, Senator.
Let the record show we actually agreed on something. Number 2, the reason why we keep asking, which may sound a little silly to the audience here, why are we so concerned about this choir singing a song? What's that got to do with anything? The question is, who are you going to care about? Who are you going to help? Are you going to help those victims of January 6th, the policemen and their families? Or are you going to help people who were arrested for assaulting them? I think the J6 choir looks like a tribute to them, characterizing them as political prisoners and unlucky and just patriotic people who may have gotten out of hand. Do you see the difference?
Excuse me, Senator, I can appreciate the difference, but I think my track record shows which side I fall on.
Well, that's why we keep asking you. What do you do with the money that you get from this music, and who do you give it to? And you've really kind of ducked and dodged and said, I'm not aware of this. I had nothing to do with it.
No, we actually give all the money. Nobody made any money. All proceeds went through a 501c3.
I'm talking about the creation of the musical work.
Yes, all the money, all the profits went to nonviolent offenders' families and other groups in need.
The point I'm getting to is not what happens to the proceeds, but who created this musical masterpiece, who was in on this creation, why, who they chose to be the members of the choir, and you profess to know nothing about that. Is that true?
I did not have any participation in the recording.
Well, it's going to be difficult to understand how you can disperse the money and have nothing to do with the recording. Let me ask you about one of the conspiracy theories, one of the major ones that I've heard you associated with, and that is whether or not the FBI planned January 6th. Why did you say that?
Senator, I appreciate the opportunity to address that. That's not what I said. The entirety of the statement attributes my conclusion based on the public record that the FBI utilized sources in and around January 6th, and the Biden Inspector General confirmed just that.
So it's Cash's Corner, and the date is December the, I can't read the writing, it's so small here. It looks like it's December 2002. And what did the FBI know before January 6th? And you said, what was the FBI doing planning January 6th for a year? Want to send this down to the desk so he gets a chance to look at it? Why did you say that? Did you think the FBI was really planning January 6th for a year?
Actually, Senator, I'm grateful that you raised this point. You should watch the entirety of the episode. This is the problem with taking snippets. Well, let me inform you then. What it says is it raises an interrogatory asking why government resources were utilized. I've run resources and sources at the FBI. I've run sources overseas. It takes months for source developmental networks.
What resources were utilized a year in advance of planning?
That's the question I'm asking, and the Biden Inspector General report answered that question in the affirmative, that multiple sources were utilized, and I was simply trying to get to that answer.
What the Inspector General came back with was, quote, there is no evidence that the FBI had undercover employees in the various protest crowds or at the Capitol on January 6th.
And there is
no evidence.
There's a huge distinction between undercover employees and sources. I know because I ran them. And anybody in law enforcement knows that too.
So you think the FBI was planning January 6th for months ahead of time?
Once again, that's not what I said.
Yes, well, read your own words. Maybe that's a good starting point. I'd just say one last thing. We've talked a lot about fentanyl and stopping it from coming in the United States. If you were successful in becoming head of the FBI, I wish you good luck and do everything I can to help you. But don't forget there's traffic moving in the opposite direction. What are we sending back to Mexico and the cartels? Money and guns. Money and guns. Please look at the whole equation. We've got to deal with all aspects of it.
That's a great point. I will, Senator.
I yield.
Senator Lee.
His tone was steady, but his eyes said everything. He'd come with facts, names, and a point to make. He opened by describing what had happened to some of those granted clemency after the Capitol riots. One man, Matthew Huddle, went home, got stopped by a sheriff, pulled a gun, and was killed in the confrontation. Another, Peter Schwartz, had 38 prior convictions and walked free thanks to presidential mercy. Durbin didn't sugarcoat it. He looked Patel square in the eye and asked, was it wrong? And just like that, the oxygen left the room. Patel began with formality, acknowledging authority, talking about the right of the president to issue pardons, but Durbin cut him off. I'm not asking if it was legal, I'm asking if it was right. It was a question of conscience, not constitutionality. A question that required honesty, not deflection. But what came instead was something else. Patel shifted the focus away from the issue entirely. He started talking about overdoses, about homicides, about other crises gripping the country. America will be safe, he said, when we don't have 200,000 drug deaths and 50,000 homicides. It sounded powerful until you realized it wasn't an answer. It was a diversion, the kind of political pivot designed to dodge the bullet without getting hit. Durbin didn't let it slide. He leaned in, frustration visible now. You just won't answer the question. The truth is, Patel couldn't. Admitting those pardons were a mistake would have meant crossing a line of loyalty few are willing to cross. So he danced around it, offering sympathy for law enforcement, empathy for victims, and not one clear stance on whether those releases made the nation safer. And that's when the hearing shifted. Durbin, seeing the dodge, changed gears completely. Let me ask you about something else, he said. Tell me about your J6 choir. Patel straightened up. It's not my choir, he insisted, his tone tight but controlled. According to him, it was a fundraising project, money raised for families of non-violent offenders, for rent, for college tuition, for rebuilding lives. On paper it sounded noble, but then Durbin dropped the twist. Reports said the choir's members were actually inmates convicted for their roles in the January 6th attack, men who'd stormed the Capitol, now singing patriotic hymns from prison and raising money through it. Who sings on the recording? Durbin asked. I don't know, Senator, Patel replied. You weren't aware who made the recording? No, Senator. That answer hung there like an unanswered call, because whether or not Patel personally organized it, the optics were undeniable. A fundraising project connected to the same event those pardons were tied to, an event many Americans still see as a wound in democracy. You could feel the tension building again, the undercurrent of disbelief from everyone watching. It wasn't about music anymore. It was about narrative. It was about rewriting history under the disguise of charity. Durbin wasn't finished. He moved next to Patel's foundation, an organization Patel proudly claimed had donated over $1 million to help families, police officers, and disaster victims. On the surface it was philanthropy, but the senator pressed deeper. Tell me about 1&0 LLC, he said. Patel hesitated, then confirmed it was a company connected to someone on the board. Money from the foundation had gone through it, roughly $4 million spent on marketing to raise just $500,000. Durbin raised an eyebrow. The math didn't make sense. $4 million spent to give away $500,000. That's not a charity problem, it's a credibility problem. Patel insisted everything was legitimate, that it was just how digital fundraising works, but the impression had already landed. To viewers watching at home, it sounded like the line between helping families and helping friends was starting to blur. Still, the senator wasn't done. He moved to the one area every public figure dreads: associations. He listed names: Laura Loomer, Stu Peters, figures known for inflammatory rhetoric, conspiracies, and extremist claims. Patel didn't flinch. He said taking a photo with someone at an event doesn't mean he shares their views. He said doing media appearances doesn't make him responsible for a host's opinions. And maybe that's true. But here's the thing, optics matter, appearances matter. Because every handshake, every shared stage, every smiling photo tells a story to the public. Durbin pointed out that some of these figures had promoted wild theories about national tragedies being staged, about public officials faking illnesses for sympathy, And Patel once again distanced himself. I took a picture, that's all. But repetition breeds perception. When someone appears multiple times on platforms built on outrage and misinformation, it's no longer coincidence, it's a pattern. This wasn't about guilt by association, it was about judgment. And in that hearing, Durbin was making the case that judgment, not just ideology, was on trial. By this point, Patel had weathered 3 storms: the pardons, the choir, the foundation. But the underlying question remained the same: what does accountability look like when loyalty takes priority over truth? Because if you strip away the political noise, this moment was about something bigger than 2 men sparring in a Senate chamber. It was about what happens when mercy becomes selective, when justice is bent for allies, and when institutions built to uphold law start protecting those who break it. Durbin's persistence wasn't just frustration, it was principle. He was highlighting what's at stake when clemency turns into a political tool, when forgiveness isn't earned but granted for allegiance, when the power to pardon is used not for justice but for narrative control. Patel's answers, or lack thereof, painted a picture of how far that power can stretch. Every deflection, every carefully worded response, every claim of ignorance revealed the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the greatest threat to accountability isn't corruption, it's silence. Think about the broader picture for a moment. The pardon power was meant to be an act of mercy, a second chance for those who'd proven redemption possible. But over time it's been twisted, used to rewrite stories that should have been cautionary tales. Each time it's abused, trust in justice erodes just a little more, and that's the thread running through this entire exchange. The senator wasn't just asking about individuals, he was asking what happens to a country's moral compass when people who assault law enforcement are set free, when charities tied to them raise money, and when those responsible claim ignorance. Patel's line, "America will be safe when we don't have overdoses and homicides," sounded like leadership. But in context it was avoidance, because safety isn't just about crime statistics. It's about trust that those in power will uphold justice even when it's inconvenient, even when it challenges their side. This is the paradox of modern politics. Everyone claims to stand with law enforcement until it conflicts with loyalty. Everyone preaches accountability until it touches their circle. Durbin, to his credit, kept his questions simple, grounded, factual. Patel's responses, meanwhile, reflected the complex dance of someone trying to stay loyal, stay relevant, and stay out of trouble, all at once. By the time the hearing moved to a close, the tone had shifted from questioning to reflection. What we just witnessed wasn't just 2 men debating policy, it was a live demonstration of how hard it's become to get a straight answer in Washington. And the implications stretch far beyond that room. Because when the truth becomes optional, when consequences fade behind excuses, the line between public service and political theater blurs completely. The power of a pardon is immense. It can set a person free. It can also rewrite history. And that's what makes this moment so unsettling. For every person watching who believes in second chances, there's someone else wondering if justice still means the same thing for everyone. America's not safer because of who gets pardoned. It's safer when those decisions are made with wisdom, not calculation, with fairness, not favoritism. And when Durbin finally leaned back in his chair, letting the silence fill the room one last time, you could almost sense the weight of the moment. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was about the soul of accountability itself. Patel walked away having technically answered every question, but spiritually, none at all. And for the millions watching, that silence spoke louder than any statement could. Because the truth is, every time a hearing like this happens, it's not just the witness being tested, it's the system. Whether it still values honesty over loyalty, whether we still demand answers from those in power, that's the real story here. A senator asked if the nation was safer. A witness dodged, deflected, and redirected. And in doing so, he accidentally gave the most honest answer of all. America is only as safe as its integrity. And when the people responsible for defending it refuse to speak plainly, that's when the danger begins, not with a riot, not with a pardon, but with silence. If you made it this far, you already know why this matters, because this isn't just about one man or one hearing, it's about what kind of country we're becoming. So if you want to keep uncovering the stories they don't want told, if you want to understand how power really moves behind closed doors, then make sure you subscribe. hit the like button, and drop a comment below. These hearings may look like politics, but they're more than that. They're windows into the soul of justice, and sometimes the most revealing part isn't the answers we get, it's the ones they refuse to give.